1. Your organization requires that all external sharing in SharePoint Online be restricted to only verified domains. Which PowerShell cmdlet should you use to configure this setting? A. Set Spotnet sharing capability external user and guest sharing. B. Set Spotnet sharing domain restriction mode allow list. C. Set BOSite sharing capability disabled. D. Set Spotnet default sharing link type direct. 2. You need to implement a conditional access policy that requires multi-factor authentication for all administrators accessing Microsoft 365 from outside the corporate network. What is the correct sequence of configurations? A. Create policy, select admin roles, configure location condition, require MFA, enable policy. B. Enable MFA, create policy, select users, configure device compliance. C. Configure named locations, enable policy, select admin roles, require MFA. D. Select admin roles, enable policy, configure location condition, require MFA. 3. Your company has deployed Microsoft Defender for Office 365 Plan 2. Users report that legitimate emails from a trusted partner are being quarantined. What should you configure to prevent this while maintaining security? Create a Mailflow rule to bypass spam filtering for the partner domain. B. Add the partner domain to the allowed sender list in the anti-spam policy. C. Configure a safe sender entry in the anti-phishing policy. D. Create a tenant allow block list entry for the partner domain. 4. You are implementing sensitivity labels for your organization. Users need to apply labels to documents that will automatically encrypt content and apply watermarks. Which component must be deployed first? A. Azure Information Protection Unified Labeling Client. B. Microsoft Purview Compliance Portal Configuration. C. Azure Rights Management Service Activation. D. Data Loss Prevention Policies. 5. An organization needs to ensure that all emails containing credit card numbers are automatically encrypted before being sent externally. What should you implement? A. Data Loss Prevention Policy with automatic encryption action. B. Sensitivity label with automatic application. C. Mailflow rule with Office 365 message encryption. D. Conditional access policy with encryption requirement. 6. You need to configure Microsoft Teams to prevent users from communicating with external Skype for Business users, but allow Teams-to-Teams external communication. Which settings should you modify? A. External access settings in Teams Admin Center. B. Guest access settings in Teams Admin Center. C. Federation settings in Skype for Business Admin Center. D. Org-wide Teams policies. 7. Your organization uses Azure AD Connect with password hash synchronization. You need to implement seamless single sign-on SSO. What is the minimum required action? A. Run the Azure AD Connect wizard and enable seamless SSO feature. B. Reconfigure authentication method to pass through authentication. C. Deploy EFS infrastructure. D. Enable Windows Hello for Business. 8. You are configuring e-discovery for legal compliance. You need to ensure that specific mailboxes cannot be deleted or modified during an investigation. What should you implement? A. Litigation, hold on the mailboxes. B. In place hold policy. C. Retention label with disposition review. D. E-discovery case with content search. 9. A user's mailbox has reached the 100 gigabyte quota. You need to provide the user with additional storage without changing the license. What should you enable? A. Archive mailbox for the user. Shared mailbox conversion. C. Mailbox quota increase via PowerShell. D. OneDrive storage allocation. 10. Your organization requires that all Microsoft 365 administrative actions be logged and retained for 10 years. Which solution should you implement? A. Enable Unified Audit Log and configure Audit Log Retention policy for 10 years. B. Configure Azure AD sign-in logs with Log Analytics Workspace. C. Enable Microsoft 365 Defender security reports. D. Create a data loss prevention audit policy. 11. You need to prevent users from downloading SharePoint files to unmanaged devices while still allowing them to view and edit files in the browser. What should you configure? A conditional access policy with app-enforced restrictions for SharePoint. B. Device compliance policy requiring managed devices. C. SharePoint site-level permissions. D. Azure AD device registration requirement. 12. Your organization needs to migrate on-premises Exchange mailboxes to Exchange Online. You want to migrate mailboxes in batches over several weeks. Which migration method should you use? A. Staged migration. B. Queued over migration. C. Hybrid migration with move requests. D. Map migration. 13. You are implementing Microsoft Purview Data Lifecycle Management. You need to automatically delete all emails in users' deleted items folders after 30 days. What should you create? A. Retention policy scoped to Exchange email location with delete action after 30 days. B. Retention label published to all users. C. Data loss prevention policy with auto delete action. D. Mail flow rule with delayed deletion. 14. A user reports they cannot access their OneDrive files from their personal device. You verify that a conditional access policy requires device compliance. What should you instruct the user to do? A. Enroll the device in Microsoft Intune and ensure it meets compliance policies. B. Access OneDrive through the web browser in private mode. C. Request an exemption from the conditional access policy. D. Install the OneDrive Sync client. 15. You need to configure Microsoft Teams to automatically delete messages in specific team channels after 90 days. What should you implement? A. Teams retention policy with location-specific settings. B. Channel moderation settings. Teams messaging policy. D. Data loss prevention policy for Teams. 16. Your organization uses Azure AD Application Proxy to publish on-premises applications. Users report that single sign-on is not working. What is the most likely cause? A. Kerberos constrained delegation is not configured. B. Azure AD Connect is not synchronizing properly. C. Application Proxy Connector is offline. D. Multi-factor authentication is required. 17. You need to ensure that all newly created Microsoft 365 groups automatically expire after 180 days unless renewed. What should you configure? A. Microsoft 365 groups expiration policy in Azure AD. B. Retention policy in Microsoft Purview. C. Lifecycle workflow in Azure AD Identity Governance. D. PowerShell script with scheduled task. 18. An executive's mailbox was compromised. You need to search for and delete all phishing emails sent from the compromised account. What should you use? A. Content search in Microsoft Purview to find emails, then use new compliance search action with -purge. B. Message trace in Exchange Admin Center. C. E-discovery case with hard delete action. D. PowerShell commandlet remove message. 19. You are configuring Windows Autopilot for device deployment. Devices should automatically join Azure AD and enroll in Intune during OOB. What must be configured? A. Autopilot deployment profile with Azure AD join and Intune enrollment settings. B. Device enrollment manager account. C. Co-management settings in Configuration Manager. D. Group policy for domain join. 20. Your organization needs to implement communication compliance to monitor for harassment and discrimination. What is the first step? A. Create a communication compliance policy with specific conditions and reviewers. B. Enable audit logging in Microsoft Purview. C. Deploy sensitivity labels. D. Configure retention policies. 21. You need to configure Microsoft Defender for Endpoint to automatically isolate devices that are detected with critical severity alerts. What should you configure? A. Automated investigation and remediation settings with full automation level. B. Device isolation policy in Intune. C. Conditional access policy with device compliance requirement. D. Custom detection rule with isolation action. 22. A user needs to access a shared mailbox without it appearing in their Outlook folder list, but they should be able to open it via File, Open menu. What permission should you grant? A. Full access permission without automapping. Send as permission. C. Send on behalf permission. D. Full access permission with automapping enabled. 23. Your organization is implementing Microsoft Purview Insider Risk Management. You need to detect when users download unusually large amounts of data before their resignation. What should you configure? A. Insider risk policy with data theft by departing users template. B. Data loss prevention policy with user activity monitoring. C. Communication compliance policy. D. Discovery alert policy. 24. You need to configure Exchange Online Protection to reject emails that fail both SPF and DKIM checks from external senders. What should you modify? A. Anti-phishing policy with composite authentication settings. B. Anti-spam policy with SPF hard fail action. C. Mailflow rule with rejection action. D. Connection filter policy. 25. Your organization uses Privileged Identity Management, PIM, for Azure AD roles. You need to require approval before users can activate the Global Administrator role. What should you configure? A. Role settings in PIM with activation approval requirement. B. Conditional access policy for global administrators. C. Azure AD Administrative Unit restriction. D. Approval workflow in identity governance. 26. You are implementing Microsoft Intune application protection policies. You need to prevent users from copying data from managed apps to personal apps on iOS devices. What should you configure? A. Data protection settings with policy managed apps as the allowed destination. B. iOS device restrictions profile. C. Conditional access policy with app protection requirement. D. App configuration policy